Hey Texas JSA, this is Mitsuki, your current Lieutenant Governor, which also means that I'm serving as this year's FEC Chairwoman. This is just a quick presentation on running for office in Texas JSA. Most of the information in this presentation was given at both candidate interest meetings, so if you attended those, maybe you're just here to get a quick refresher, and if you weren't able to attend those, this is definitely a good slideshow for you. So just a quick overview of the information I'll be going over. First is how to access the FEC Handbook, then a quick timeline, a description of the positions that are available, how to declare your candidacy, campaign spending, campaign endorsements, voting procedures, infractions, and finally some tips to get you started on your campaign. Okay, so you can either scan this QR code or go to the link below the QR code to access this year's FEC Handbook. Please read it. I highly recommend that you read through the whole handbook because it contains all of the necessary information for this election season, including rules and required forms. So I'll give it a few seconds before I move on to the next slide. All right, so this is a rough timeline of events in this year's election. At the end of the month, we have Winter Congress, and that is February 25th and 26th. And after WinterCon gavels out, candidates can publicly declare their candidacy. That means that they can finally post on social media, make their account public, and basically let all JSAers know that they are running for whatever position they're running for. In March, I recommend that candidates attend chapter meetings. That entails reaching out to chapter presidents and coordinating a time and date in which you can attend one of their chapter meetings and introduce yourself. Then I recommend that candidates attend various JSA events throughout the region or state just so that other Texas JSAers know who you are and get to know you before voting. Yeah. And then March 26th is going to be the last day to declare candidacy or change your desired position. In April, we're going to have a National Governor Candidates Forum. So if you're interested in running for governor, that'll be a date to look out for. I'm still coordinating with the Council of Lieutenant Governors on a final date, but it's going to be in April. Then there's going to be a state candidate forum on April 2nd. That's just for Texas, and it's for all candidates. It'll just be a quick questionnaire for candidates to get a chance to express themselves a little bit more to Texas JSAers before voting begins. If you want to look at some older state candidate forums, they are public on YouTube, so maybe that's a good reference. Then April 15th to 16th, we have Spring State, and voting is going to take place virtually before Spring State. I'll get a little bit more into that in a few slides, and the election results will be announced at closing. Okay, so these are the positions that are available. They're separated into state level and regional positions. So at the state level, you could either run for governor, lieutenant governor, or speaker of the House. And for regional, you can either run for mayor or senator. In each region, there are 2 senators and 1 mayor. Okay, so for the state level positions, all 3 of the big 3 members divide up the departments amongst themselves. Each one is in charge of overseeing 2 or 3 departments. For example, this year I'm overseeing CIA, expansion, and publicity. Then the big 3 members will attend pre-con to set up for conventions, which is the night before the convention. And a big thing that the big 3 members do is decide on cabinet positions. So that includes mid-year and regular summer cabinet applications, and they not only decide who will be on cabinet, but they also decide what will be on the application for cabinet and send all of that information out. Separate from things that all 3 members do, the governor communicates with National JSA and the adults of JSA. So they're kind of the representative of Texas JSA as a whole on a national level. So Caitlin is also a member of the Council of Governors, which means that this year she has to communicate with the other governors of all of the other states of JSA to kind of make sure that all of the states are unified. and are communicating with each other. So that's what Caitlin / the governor does. Then for the lieutenant governor, they're the head of the Senate, which means that they organize and run all of the Senate meetings. And they're also the FEC chairperson. So they chair the Fair Elections Committee to ensure that the election season for their particular year is effective and efficient and fair, so equitable. Then the Speaker of the House is in charge of running the House of Representatives meetings. Those meetings typically run after senators pass bills, and basically both chambers of, let's call it Congress, will pass a bill before it's officially in the Texas JSA Constitution. Then we have regional positions. So there's one mayor per region. And this year we're actually going to have 4 mayor positions available. Before we only had 2, but now that the PMC and RGC are now regions, PMR and RGR, they can all have mayors as well. So the mayor is in charge of organizing regional conventions concurrently with chapter presidents. Then their job is to unify the region. So they can choose to host cross-chapter meetings or regional meetings or both as they wish. Then they're in charge of running the region's Instagram and managing the region's social media accounts. And of course, they communicate with senators on projects. Again, there are 2 senators, and those senators from each region are in charge of writing legislation on behalf of their region's constituents or whatever they see as fit or necessary for Texas JSA as a whole. And of course, that legislation is presented at Senate meetings. Then senators also serve on the Fair Elections Committee if they aren't running for a position. And senators will help the mayor with organizing regional activities and coordinate with the mayor for regional conventions. So the senator and the mayor of each region work closely together and also with each other. So how to declare candidacy. And also, I guess this is a bit on like what happens after you declare it as well. So first, you need to fill out 3 required forms and upload them to the Google form link in the FEC Handbook. The forms are also in the handbook. I believe that one of them, the campaign manager form, is not required if you do not have a campaign manager. So again, having a campaign manager is optional. So if you would not want to have one, then you can not turn that form in. But everything else is required. And the 4th form is the campaign spending form, and that one has to be turned in at Spring State. So ignore that for now. You can send your forms in through that Google form link before WinterCon to officially declare your candidacy to the state. It's just you can't post anything on social media before WinterCon gavels out. So just keep that in mind. And you can have up to 15 people on your campaign team before WinterCon, so choose carefully if you plan on having a big campaign team. And then after WinterCon, you can have as many people as you want. So make sure that you start out with 15 people and end up with however many you want at the end. And after I approve your declaration of candidacy, I'll share a Google Drive folder with you in that email in which I approve that declaration. And that Google Drive folder will be titled Texas JSA Elections 2022 to 2023. And in it will be some helpful tips and also some information about elections. Most of the stuff in there is just resources, but there are some things in there that I will continuously update. Okay, so campaign spending. The spending limit for all candidates is $50. You have to record every expenditure for your campaign on that campaign spending form, which is again linked in the FEC Handbook. Please keep all of your receipts. This is just so that all the candidates are on a pretty much even level and no candidate is spending too much and going overboard for their JSA campaign. The spending report has to be filled out and turned in at the Spring State Convention for the candidate to be on the ballot. Basically, since voting is taking place the week before, if that spending report isn't turned in, then essentially that candidate can no longer be on the ballot. So you can't run, basically. And it would really be a bummer if after all of the campaign season, the only reason why you weren't able to run was because of a spending report. So I recommend that you don't forget about it, and there will be reminders. Some things you might spend money on are maybe stickers you want to send to people, or pins, or I'll get into this a little bit more later. But since voting actually closes after the first day of spring state, maybe you want to hand out some pins or some kind of, I don't know, posters for people to vote for you who haven't voted yet. But yeah, that is up to your discretion. In terms of endorsements, candidates always ask a bunch of people for endorsements, but there are a few people that you are not allowed to ask. First is any of the big three members. So no current big three member, Caitlin, Farzine, or me, can endorse any campaign. However, you can contact any past big three member, and those big three members can give endorsements to candidates. So just don't ask any of the three of us. Then current candidates. No current candidate can endorse any campaign except their own. This means that there's no such thing as running with someone or running a joint campaign or writing an endorsement for another candidate when you're also a candidate. Just avoid all of that. And yeah, then no FEC member may endorse any campaign, and that is to ensure that the FEC is unbiased and can properly oversee the election. So this year's FEC includes myself, Farzine, then Caden Foster, who is an ACR senator, and then Sohali Vadula, who is also an ACR senator. So just don't ask any of us, and you'll be fine for endorsements. Okay, so voting procedures. This year, like the previous 2 years, we'll have a voting week for JSAers to vote for their favorite candidates. That will be a virtual voting week. And we've decided that this year's voting week will be the week before spring state, so Sunday, April 9th to 10 p.m. on April 15th. And the election results will be announced at the closing session of spring state. And you have to be eligible to vote. So a voter is defined as a tax-paid member of Texas JSA. You can check that tax-paid status in your My JSA portal. Let me know if someone's unable to pay their taxes. But in terms of tax-paid status, we're going to be sending out a list of all chapter members who are and aren't tax-paid to CPs and teacher advisors. So there will be numerous reminders to ensure that all of the members that people want to be tax paid are tax paid. So essentially, we'll have a number of opportunities for chapters to verify voter eligibility before the deadline in early April. Then infractions. Okay, so we have a strike system. It's more detailed in the FEC Handbook, but this is just a quick summary. So Texas JSA elections operate on a 3-strike system. So if any candidate is found to be in violation of any rule, they will receive a strike. You can see the FEC Handbook again. But this is again up to the FEC's discretion. So I think most of the actual strikes we hand out will be after a number of warnings, and it also kind of depends on the scale of the infraction as well. So don't be too worried about that. Just make sure that you try not to break any rules. If you break one on accident, we'll probably cut you some slack. Strikes have to be publicized per agreements that I made earlier in the year with the National Council of Lieutenant Governors. This means that if you receive a strike, it has to be posted on the Texas JSA Instagram so that everyone can see that you got a strike. And I guess there will be a live count of those strikes as well. Not very fun, and I highly recommend that you don't get a strike. All right, so finally I have some helpful tips to get you started on your campaign. First, you can create a campaign aesthetic that includes a color palette, a logo, some fonts for a cohesive social media presence. So Maybe you recognize some of these logos from past campaigns if you were active in JSA a couple years back, but you can use these logos on your Instagram posts or on your platform. And it's just a fun way for people to look at a logo and say, oh, I know that person and I know what position they're running for. So, yeah. You can also create a platform on Google Docs, or if you're feeling extra creative, you can create a campaign website, or you can do both. So the little image below is from Deanne's campaign for lieutenant governor 2 years ago, and she actually made a website. And on that website, she linked a platform, a Google Docs, and that led to her platforms. So I guess a website is a way for you to consolidate all of the information for your campaign, like your platform and your endorsements, and a little bit about you, etc., etc. But if you don't want to have that and you think Instagram is enough, you can, of course, just post a platform and allow people or potential voters to look at that instead. Then you can come up with a catchy slogan to make your campaign memorable. For example, hashtag Tangang was David's from 3 years ago, and he was the governor. So, yeah, if you can come up with some kind of slogan, maybe with your last name or your first name or something you stand for, that might help JSAers remember your campaign. And maybe on the ballot, they'll be like, oh, I remember that person because of their slogan, or I don't know. Then you should utilize the chapter contacts list to reach out to chapter presidents. So this chapter contacts list will be made available to you after I approve your declaration for candidacy. It'll be in that folder that I was talking about earlier with all of the resources and information. So you can use that to reach out to chapter presidents to coordinate a time where you could meet with their chapter, or just reach out to them in general. Then this is just a fun one, but maybe you could take a fancy headshot to use in your pictures or your profile picture on social media. It's just a way for you to maybe look more professional and maybe look like you're going to a JSA convention, if that makes sense. Um, then, oh yeah, this is the final thing. Just think about members of JSA you've worked with who could potentially join your campaign team. Of course, you don't have to have a campaign team, you could run solo, but with a campaign team, that means you'll have people who will vote for you and who will also reach out to other people and encourage their friends to vote for you as well. You can make a group chat with them on Instagram or Messenger or iMessage or I don't know, Slack. But either way, if you have a campaign team, maybe it'll shave off some of the work you have to do for your campaign. And you can also get some good ideas to add to your platform from your team as well. Yeah, so thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you for your interest in becoming a leader in Texas JSA in the coming year. I wish you all of the best in this election season, and I guess I'll see you at the next election meeting or whatever event happens next. Thank you.